Hey, good morning. What's up? What's going on? What's going on? All right. So, this is chapter 2 of the Knucklehead Chronicles, the beginning. Just so you guys have some kind of inkling of what I'm talking about here. I will give you a little bit of what's the word? A recap. I can't think. It's early. So, I'll give you a little bit of a recap just to give you kind of a gist of what I am talking about. So, hang tight. We'll be right back. All right, and welcome back to another episode of the Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. Man, before I get into my whole spiel here, I want to say that season 2 of the group panel returns on Sunday, this coming Sunday, January 17th, 2021. The gang and I are getting back together. I missed them boys over the couple of weeks. So me and Kevin Peoples, Dwayne Goodson, Ephraim Terrell. And this week, we have some amazing guests. We have Jay Hamilton McCoy coming through, and Cole Johnson. We're going to be talking about racism, inequality. What can we do as a race, and we're going to get into all of that. And there's also going to be the call-in line as well, popping off this Sunday. So make sure that you are in the building. Okay? And also, don't forget, excuse me, visit the website, knuckleheadchroniclespodcast.com, and you'll be able to see all that information, all the past shows, any merch, anything like that. My morning coffee doesn't do me. As much as I love morning coffee, it just doesn't agree with me. By the time I get through drinking it, it's kind of like, oh my God, But anyway, so we are in part 2 of In the Beginning. I know some people don't like background music. I do. I like background music because it kind of sets the mood for me. Because I'm the only one talking, so I like it. Give me a vote if you listen to this podcast. Leave that comment on Spreaker or hit me up on Facebook or anything like that, and just let me know. Do you like background music in your podcast? I know it's a good vote. I'd love to hear that. Because I've heard some people who are podcasting vets who don't like background music. And I love background music. It just sets smooth. Especially if you are a solo podcaster. Now, if it's a group of us, I don't see a need for background music. It still sets the mood, but maybe if you got too many voices on one, don't need all that background music. But I need it because and then when my studio is, I have no other sound, and it's just my voice talking to the mic. I'm like, oh God. And then I have my monitor playing in my ears, so I can also hear myself. So it's like, I need some background music. So if you are part of if you listen to this portion of the Knucklehead Chronicles and you like background music, let me know. I would love to hear it. Okay. So just to give you a recap of In the Beginning, chapter 1, I'm beginning to get into my life story and let you guys know a little bit about me. Transparency. People love transparency. When I was 17, my mother told me that the man that raised me wasn't my father, right? So that was traumatic and all in itself. And so the first portion of my life between 17 and approximately 19, 20, a lot of women pay for that. A lot of women pay for the mistakes because I didn't want to deal with me, right? I didn't want to deal with my mom. I didn't want to deal with that whole situation. I was just so mad at her. Excuse me. I was so mad at her. I'm like, how can you not tell me? And so in this chapter, I'm going to get into my first marriage. my first marriage, I'm not gonna call her name. That's not what I do here. Of course, you guys know that already. But my first marriage was an absolute disaster. You understand what I'm saying to you? Disaster. Just to emphasize the D in disaster. And it was only a disaster because I was young. I was 19. I mean, I think I got into a little bit of that in chapter 1. So just in case you didn't hear chapter 1. Got into, I was 19. And the way I met this young lady, who potentially turned out to be my second baby mama, because by this time, you guys, I've already had my first daughter, and so I met her. Our meeting was, now I wouldn't say happenstance. It was a setup, right? But it was bad timing. That's probably a good word. It was bad timing. Met her, and right away she's talking marriage. 5 minutes into the relationship, she's talking marriage. So I'm like, hey, I'm 19 years old. I might as well. Why not? Right? And so I'd never been married before. I had to tell my mom and my daddy, I met this girl last week, and we get married next weekend. And my mom gave me this face like, what are you doing? But she never said anything bad. She never downplayed it, because my mother and father were ministers, and they, and I remember my dad telling me, or my stepdad was telling me, this is a lesson you got to learn. We can tell you, but you're going to do what you want to do anyway. Because at this time, I was extremely rebellious at this point. And, I'm out of the house. That's why, but that's the reason why I married my first wife, because I wanted to get out of the house. And I wanted to do my own thing. And I wanted to I thought I just had the life. See, and this brings me to my first point with some of us young folk. Some of you guys, I'm old now, but you young folk, is just because you think you got life by the horns, and just because you think you may have it together, please understand that it's like Transformers. There's more than it's more to it than meets the eye. You know what I'm saying? Life is more to life than meets the eye. You're just not gonna, because if you think about this, if life was that easy, everybody who had it would have had it under control, right? It's really not. And so I got up at 19 years old, and I said, I'm going to marry this girl. I'm going to do my thing. I'm going to be the best husband that I can be. And here's the thing, is that I was not ever the man that she needed. Never. Because she married a boy. You know what I'm saying? So, ladies, what I'm trying to say is this. Look, recognize who you're with. If I could give you any advice in this particular episode here, it's recognize who you're with. A lot of times we just kind of flow, and he might be nice looking, or he might have this, or he might have that. But recognize who you're dealing with. But see, before you can even recognize who you're dealing with, recognize who you are first. And so, because what happens is people learn how to disguise themselves. People learn how to be a chameleon and know how they've learned how to conform to situations and people. And what happens is they get lost in the confirmation. They don't know, they don't remember, they don't recall, whatever, who they are. And so when the situation allows for them or makes them to do something else or move on, they don't know how. Because they've sat in this soot of I don't know for the longest. And that's what happened with me. I didn't know who I was by the time I married this girl. And started trying to conform to who she wanted me to be. I didn't know who I was. The other thing was I knew my name. I knew my name. That was it. You know. But as far as what I wanted and who I, you know, and I'll tell you, it was rough. It was rough. We had our ups and downs, and just like anybody else, right? Mostly down though, because I just couldn't pull it together for nothing. I mean, we worked together in some places. No, we didn't. We didn't. That's what I'm thinking. My second wife. Excuse me. We just had terrible times. The only bright spot in my first marriage was my daughter Brianna. She was conceived in love. She came into this earth in love, but her mama and I just could not pull it together. And then her, you know, she had outside influences. Her mother, her auntie, and everybody else decided they want to chime in and tell her how to live her life. And to this day, I think last I heard from Brianna, her mother was doing well, has been remarried, which is great. I love it. I love that she has moved on and done whatever. So, you know, at this point, I mean, it was a mess. It was a complete mess, man. I mean, we didn't pay no bills. We would go out and just buy stuff. We cheated on each other. There was no physical abuse. However, there was one instance to where it wasn't so savory. I mean, but we were young. I mean, she was 4 or 5 years older than me at the time that we got together and we got married. It was just a terrible situation. I mean, but you know, people do deal with other things or deal with things in life to not deal with other things. So, okay, let me give you my point. Let me tell you this. This is the reason why I said that. I married my baby's mom on the first one. Oh, I'm sorry, the second one is because I did not want to deal with home. I didn't want to go home to my mom. And see, the problem is as much as I tried to avoid that, that was the one thing that plagued me the whole time with her. Because every situation that we got into, we would either get evicted from a place or something. I would always end up back home. I spent the majority of my time with this woman trying to avoid from going home. And because here's the problem is, we don't want to hear the proverbial "I told you so." Even though people don't say "I told you so," they just kind of give you the side eye or something. But people do stuff just to avoid hearing the proverbial "I told you so." Sometimes the "I told you so" isn't bad. It's about the context of how you hear "I don't know." Right? If you hear "I don't know" and you're in a bad spot in your life, you're not going to receive that. You're not going to receive it. You know, you're not going to receive it that "I told you so." Because it's, you know, with people, when they don't want to hear "I don't know," they just sit there and go, I don't want to hear that right now. Just like when somebody passed away, they don't want to hear, you know, I'm sorry for your loss. Sometimes they don't want to hear that. The same thing. But yeah, me and her were just in a bad spot. But I wanted to be with her. I mean, don't ask me why. I mean, you know, so I was young and dumb. She left me a few times. Yeah, a few times. You heard me say it right. A few times. She took my kid. When Brianna was first born, she was living with me and my mom and my dad. But this time we was married. That's the only way we could live with my mom and dad. if we were married. But anyways, we were married, and I can't even, it's hard to even think about. But she left me. I came home from work one day, and when I left for work that morning, she was there with my mom. She was feeding the baby, and I had told her we're gonna go to dinner and and I come home from work that night, and no baby, no wife, no nothing, gone. Again, because she had those outside influences telling her, you need to come home, you need to do this, you need to do that, And so I'm sitting there with mud. I'm sitting there with egg on my face, trying to figure out what just happened. So where's my wife and my baby? And I walk in the house, and my mom is sitting in the recliner. I'll never forget this. We lived in a trailer, and we got fancy one day, and she bought her a couch, and she was a recliner. So she was sitting in the recliner, and she was crying, bawling her eyes out. And I said, "Mom, what's wrong? What's going on? Why are you crying?" And she told me what happened. And she said, her mom came in and took her. It was borderline kidnapping of the emotional sort. You know what I'm saying? Okay. So I'm sorry, I had to answer a text. Anyways, so my mom, the way my mom described it, it was a kidnapping of the emotional sort. She was like, "Well, you need to come home, and you need to be close to your doctor." So it was an emotional thing. So I say that to say this is, ladies and gentlemen, don't let outside influences be the undoing of you and whatever you're going through. Okay? If you're with someone, marriage or otherwise, try to keep outside influences out of yourself. Because unless that person that be mindful of who you're dealing with. I mean, if they're because some people's hearts and intentions aren't the best for you. Sometimes people, the old saying goes, misery loves company, right? So it's important that you know who you're dealing with. But to be on the safe side, just don't deal with people. I mean, not deal with the people, but don't let outside influences undo you. And that's what happened with me and her, is that she had outside influences. She had a mama, she had an auntie, she had cousins, and everybody was just talking about, you shouldn't be with him. What you with him for? You can do better. The whole thing. And so there was a time to where they were going to buy her a car because we didn't have one. Oh, they was going to buy her. I don't know what happened there. They was going to buy her a car, and because she was with me, they decided not to. But what they did with her, they told her, they said, "Okay, we'll buy you a car if you leave him." She said, "Okay." And they bought her a car. Her mom and her auntie went down to the dealership, one of those little buy here, pay here, and got her a car. It was a 2000. What kind of car was that? It was maybe a 2002 Toyota Tercel. If you guys remember those cars, it was a Toyota Tercel. It had rims on it, little ground defense kit. Oh, it was bad, and it was a 4-speed. It's a 4-speed. It was crazy. But here's what's funny is that they bought that car. They bought that car for her. She left them and came right to where I was. It came right to where I was. It was kind of hilarious a little bit, but be mindful. Like I say, I'm joking about it, and I say this: be mindful of who you are. Don't let people undermine you. Don't let people manipulate you or try to buy you. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So, long story short, with her, with me, my first wife, is we endured, went through a couple of evictions. We just went through a bad way. But one thing I can say about her good though is that she maintained employment the entire time we were married. Now me, on the other hand, not so much. But I wanted to round. I remember at this stage of my life, because I walked around like I was King Tut. I remember walking around like nobody couldn't tell me nothing. You feel me? And I just knew I had it together. I just knew that I was the man. You know. But when you're the man though, you have to do certain things. Just because you self-proclaim your title, self-proclaim yourself as a man doesn't mean you're a man, fellas. There's certain things you got to do. You have to walk the walk and talk the talk. Sometimes some of us just talking, and it's because it's easier to run your mouth than to do something, right? For years, I walked around like I was the man. But here's the problem. Here's the thing. I walked around like I was the man, but we didn't have any running water. Okay? I'm trying to let that sink in. Let that sizzle in your spirit just for a second. I walked around here like I was the man. I was King Tut, but we didn't have any running water. Right? We went without food for a while because I thought I was the man. Swag on I thought my swag was 100,000. Yeah, not even close. Right? So fellas, reevaluate the truth in you. Look in the mirror. If you are meaning her no good, keep moving. If you are meaning her no good, keep it moving. Why are we playing these games? I wasted 4 or 5 years of this woman's time because I had no idea what I was doing. You know? She had fault too. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that she didn't have fault because she did. But as a man, I should have recognized that I had an issue. Like I told y'all in the first chapter, I realized that I had an issue at 17 when I didn't know anything about it until I was 30. Right? But I just wanted to pretend like it was going to be okay and everything was going to come through and all that. And not the way it works. Not the way it works, y'all, for real. So, in closing, I would say this. This part of my life was really hard for me because I was fresh off of what my mom told me at 17. You know, I went to boot camp. I went to the military thinking I could escape it. Maybe if I was regular Army, I probably could have went and made it. But I was in the National Guard, right? So I came right back home to the same nonsense. So I was going through a lot at this time, at this stage in my life. And I didn't want to forgive. I didn't want to forgive her. I still tried to just live. And so it just is just a case in point of how stacking nonsense on top of nonsense on top of nonsense and just not getting any resolution to nothing, how it hurts. And we're going to get into that later, how lying, manipulation, how just putting stuff to the back burner is not good for you. And you're just kind of this, you know, you got a fire, you put it out, but it's still sparking on the bottom because we just keep putting stuff on top, you know, thinking we put the fire out. And you really didn't. But we'll get into that. So I want to thank you guys for listening to chapter 2, the beginning. So if you missed chapter 1, though, you got to go back and find it. In the beginning. This is the beginning of this Knucklehead Chronicles podcast. This is the beginning of my story. This is the beginning of How did we get here? All right. So again, check us out on Sunday. Check us out on this Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Facebook, YouTube. I think I'm going to do Periscope. I'll see what for. Periscope is going to go away here in March. But anywho, check out the website, Knucklehead Chronicles podcast.com. You guys, I'm going to get out of here. You guys have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you in chapter 3.